This is the TP-Link RE600X AX1800 Wi-Fi 6 range extender, and TP-Link says it'll give you faster speeds, lower latency, and coverage in all those dead zones in your house. But after using one in a real home setup for several days, I found out there are some trade-offs they don't always show in the box. So is this the missing piece in your Wi-Fi puzzle, or just another charger-looking device plugged into your wall? Stick around, because I'm going to tell you whether this extender is actually worth your hard-earned cash. TP-Link RE600X AX1800 Wi-Fi 6 Product Overview. So what exactly are we looking at? The TP-Link RE600X is a Wi-Fi 6 range extender released recently, in the last year or so, by TP-Link. It's part of their AX1800 class, which means, in theory, you get up to about 1.2 gigabits per second on the 5 GHz band and 574 megabits per second on the 2.4 GHz band. Its main selling proposition? It's built to fill in Wi-Fi weak spots without you having to rip out walls or run cables. Also, it integrates with TP-Link's OneMesh ecosystem, so it can behave more like part of a mesh network, rather than a separate, extra Wi-Fi name network. TP-Link RE600X AX1800 Wi-Fi 6 Performance. So here's how it felt using it day to day. I placed the RE600X in the typical mid-house location, halfway between the router and dead zone, bedroom, backyard, etc. Streaming 4K video on a TV plugged in via the extender's gigabit Ethernet did pretty well, with minimal buffering even when someone upstairs was gaming. On Wi-Fi, wireless mobile devices, speeds over 5 GHz dropped off, though still usable, in places that were 2 rooms, walls and doors, away. What surprised me, the 2.4 GHz band held up better in range than I expected. It's slower, obviously, but more stable through walls. Latency for gaming was okay, so long as the link between extender and router was strong. The intelligent signal light feature helps find a sweet spot. Move the device until the light indicates good connection, and performance improves noticeably. Features and tech. Let's dig into what makes the RE600X stand out and why those features matter in real life. Wi-Fi 6 AX1800, OFDMA, MU-MIO, 1024 QAM. What this means is more efficient use of your wireless spectrum, better handling of multiple devices, especially in busy households. If you've got a lot of phones, laptops, smart home devices pinging away, the improvements are noticeable versus older extenders. OneMesh compatibility. If you already have a TP-Link OneMesh router, the RE600X can join to make roaming smoother. Same SSID, seamless switching. That's a big deal because one of the biggest annoyances with extenders is when your phone or laptop keeps dropping or rehoming networks and you get lag during video calls or gaming. Gigabit Ethernet port and AP mode. You can use that port to plug in a wired device, TV, game console, or even use the device as an access point via Ethernet if you can run a cable. That gives you better stability and sometimes better speeds, especially in signal weak zones. Good option if you have flexibility. Design and build. In terms of look and feel, it's compact, mostly plastic, clean white styling. Doesn't stand out loud in a living room or plug point, which is nice. The internal antennas keep things sleek, no external rods, but that also means you're relying more on internal design for directionality and strength of signal. On the downside, the plug-in design means the unit takes up the outlet and may block its neighbor a little bit depending on your wall layout. Also, the placement of the Ethernet port and WPS and reset buttons are decent, but if the extender is plugged in high or behind furniture, you'll be stretching. Pros. Solid speed improvements in weak signal areas, especially for 5 GHz when placed correctly. OneMesh support means smoother roaming if you're already in TP-Link's ecosystem. AP mode plus Ethernet port adds flexibility, wired devices, or using it as an AP if you run a table. That gives you better stability and sometimes better speeds, especially in signal weak zones. Good option if you have flexibility. Cons. Speeds drop significantly the further away from your main router it is, as with all extenders, but more noticeable. Wireless performance still lags wired or mesh solutions in large homes, can feel like you're compromising.
plug-in design may be inconvenient in certain outlet positions, limited aesthetics, no fancy extras. Final verdict. So, who is this for, and is it worth the money? If you're someone with moderate Wi-Fi needs, streaming 4K or HD, video calls, maybe a few games, with a router that supports Wi-Fi 6, this is a strong value pick. Particularly if you have a TP-Link router already and want OneMesh, the RE600X fills gaps without making you buy a full mesh kit. If your house is large, many floors, thick walls, or you're super picky about ultra-low latency for competitive gaming, you might still be better off going with a wired access point or a more robust mesh system like TP-Link's higher-end mesh or something like Eero or Orbi.